Hello, I'm Anne Bowditch. I'm a therapist and author, and I'm really lucky today. I've got the wonderful Lisa Barry with me, and I'm just going to introduce Lisa. Her business is called A Mother's Journey. Lisa specialises in working with mothers at any stage of their journey to support and guide whatever is going on for them and their children. She's a practitioner of many therapies, far too many to list, but some of these include colour mirrors, emotional freedom technique, matrix re-imprinting, and as I say, many, many more. So Lisa says, having been through many huge traumas and challenges, it is now my passion to share, support, and guide mothers on how they can transform their lives no matter what unexpected challenges shows up in their life. I see life from a higher perspective, and my approach is very much a spiritual one, and always knowing we do have what it takes to conquer what might seem impossible and soar up high again. And I've known Lisa for about 7 years probably now. And the one thing I always think of when I think of Lisa is just this lovely energy. And I think everybody who I know through the colour mirrors, and that's how we met, sort of sees you in that way, that you just give off this very sort of comforting, wonderful, soft energy. So that's how we see you, I think, in the colour mirrors. So Lisa, why A Mother's Journey? Tell us about it.
Okay, well, thank you first of all, Anne, for having me on, and I'm honoured to be one of your guests, and thank you for that lovely introduction. And so why A Mother's Journey? I've always loved children, even before I became a mother. And I am a single mother of 3 grown-up adult children now. They're 24, 27, 29. And my mother's journey started absolutely as I, always dreamed of it being. But then the first little bump came along when we got divorced. Don't need to sort of fill in all the gaps, but so when I got divorced, and they were very young. They were 4, 7 and 9, 4, 6 and 9, I think. And so yeah, again, it was that sudden out of the blue sort of shock. Wasn't expecting ever to find myself in that situation. I come from a very happy childhood. My mother and father are no longer with us, but we had a lovely, solid upbringing. Got two brothers, and that's what, as a little girl, I always dreamed of having. So again, it was that sudden unexpected, which I will follow on with another trauma, and again it's the same, and it's patterns. It's the sudden unexpected. So at that point, to be able to sort of support myself, I was introduced to some amazing therapies, kinesiology, Australian bushflower essences, hypnotherapy, Chinese medicine, acupuncture. And that really, really helped, because being a mother, the most important thing, as I see it, is to be that rock for your children, to be, really strong, and so that they, when their world is turned upside down, they can sort of, see from mum, it's okay, I've got you, we'll work through whatever is going on. So that was so important for me. So that was my own experience. So little did I know that way down the line, I would be, a therapist working with mothers. That's, as I say, is my specialism. But it's always been my passion. And I think it's from our own experience that we can gives so much as a therapist, because it's that resonance, it's that understanding, and the clients can really see and relate to you, and realize that, gosh, you have been through, you know, stuff on your mother's journey, like they're, you know, might be different issues, but they're going through on their mother's journey. But it's that connection, and it's that, you know, I do like to inspire as well, that, you know, life throws stuff at us all the time, and especially on the mother's journey. But it's being able to show and inspire and support and encourage that with the right tools, the right support, you can get through this. You know, it's still obviously challenging, but it's easier than without any of the tools that I work with. So it was because I felt, wow, I managed to sort of move through it much more quickly than I probably, when it first happened, thought, you know, that I'd be able to, because I was devastated, you know, real sadness, and the sadness that the children wouldn't have that same happy childhood that, you know, I had, that environment. And of course, you know, when you are divorced or separated, there's all sorts of challenges, you know, that arise. So then, fast forwarding on, when I'd relocated, new schools, and we had this new equilibrium. We were it was our new way of being now. We sort of were you know, getting used to it. And then again, another sudden, unexpected event happened. I was on my own with the children on holiday, and we were abroad, and we had a car accident. And again, it was just that sudden life-changing experience. And my youngest son, Benji, he is, you know, it resulted in him being paralyzed. So, but there was so much else going on as well. You know, we were sort of all separated, different hospitals. You know, it was a huge traumatic moment. And as you can imagine, that going forward, you know, rehab and the recovery journey was huge. So my other children went to boarding school, and my parents sort of helped with them. So again, this isolation and separation, and we spent 4 months at Stoke Mandeville, but we had, you know, hospital in Spain first, then in Bristol, and then to Stoke Mandeville, and, you know, spinal operations, and it was while we were at Stoke Mandeville, and I was allowed to go and see sort of, you know, the clinical psychologists there, because I was still wanting to be strong for Benji, you know, like back in the divorce, but this was, you know, it was huge. It was a really big ask, and I was really struggling. And I just found that just talking with the psychologist, it just made it worse almost. It really did. You know, I'd come away and I'd just, you know, be deeper and deeper into this darkness. So obviously there's a huge amount we could talk about the journey, but what was the turning point was a great friend said, when she could see that I was struggling when we eventually came home, and she said, you know, I've got a great friend that has trained in EFT, you know, and I really think this might help you. And so I met her, and that was just a turning point. It was incredible. And that whole experience, and we can go back and forth, you know, on this conversation, but that is why I got into the work I do, because then by using many different energy techniques, the transformation from where I was, and then suddenly how I was able to sort of engage with life and be there for my children, and see see past where we were, see what could be possible. And that was just amazing. So that's why I was, and the lovely lady who's still a great friend, Rowena Beaumont, my therapist, but she teaches EFT, and she said, you're going to be learning this, you're going to be teaching it, you're going to be working with people. And I thought, no, I'm not. And this was at the early days. And of course, because I just firsthand saw the transformation, I thought, wow, I suddenly was so passionate, even more so about a mother's journey, and wanting to sort of support and help other mothers. And when as you say, I practice and use and teach many different energy therapies, but I started off working with sort of sudden life-changing trauma, because that's had been my experience, and that's sort of, the client sort of came to me for that. But then I suddenly realized that there were so many mothers coming to me, and that's what really lit me up. Because it was that resonance, it was like, wow, it was mother to mother, and seeing where they were, how they were struggling, and it was just, that's how the mother's journey, was born, if you like.
Yeah, so it sounds like you call on your own experiences quite a lot, and particularly also central to that is the strength, and where you can sort of, what you've gone through, and that gives you the faith that other people can achieve that too, because you've done it.
Absolutely. And I think, we were saying before, what I found, I think, when I was working with therapists and in my trainings, it was when somebody else, another mother had been in a similar situation, they understood, where I was at, how I was feeling, and it was just that support that I felt. And that's, again, what I love to give to the mothers that come to me. It might be a different situation that they're going through that I might not have been through, but it's still that understanding, it's still that compassion. I think that's my biggest thing. I think that compassion in a session, compassion in life for everybody. But it's that holding the space, knowing that there's that understanding, because I have been through so much, especially as a single mother, and huge, there was such a huge challenging time, but it's just the amazing things that come out of these challenges, and that's what I also like to sort of share, and also see in my clients. It's suddenly that, wow, life isn't over, or life won't be the same as it was, but it could be it's different, but it can be, it is incredible what can come out of adversity and challenges. Say my younger son, who is paralyzed, he was for a long time in the GB Paralympic ski team, because skiing was our passion. So 6 months after the accident, I took the family skiing again. He had to learn adaptively, and I think it's just it becomes this this determination, this drive, because we all want to be happy, don't we? And something lands in your path, you have to work through it, but you do want to live a lovely, happy, fun, love, joy-filled life, though. And it's almost like, right, I'm not going to let this decide that I can't have that.
I think that's it. And the challenge is, when you're in the depths of despair, what could you say to somebody who maybe now, right in this moment, we're going through lockdowns, we're going through this COVID-19, which who knows when the end is, and obviously some people will be in the depths of despair. What would you say to somebody in that moment now that might just give them some sort of hope?
I would say that nothing ever stays the same. It's a simple thing, but it's one I use with my children all the time when stuff keeps happening, even if it's small. Things change, it's energy, things, we won't still be in this lockdown. And it's just being present, it's just, if it's all too much, if it's overwhelming, if you're in this really dark place, just try and be very present and just take each moment, as it comes, and just sort of think of one thing in that moment that could maybe make you feel, I don't know, comforted or a little bit lighter. Being out in nature is my big thing, just going for a walk, getting some fresh air. Even if you live in a city, just, going outside, just moving around, it can just shift you out of that place. Obviously, the tools, I think the simple one, EFT, I would say that is just something then you've got for yourself, to learn EFT. There's so many YouTube little videos, so really short 5-minute ones, 10-minute ones, just taking you around the tapping points, that just, if you're watching and just even to begin with, without even saying anything, but just tuning in, so I would say definitely EFT, but it's the simple things, isn't it? It's being kind to yourself, making a lovely cup of tea and going to sit down and just think, I'm going to give myself the next 10 minutes just to do nothing. If you're working from home and you're stressed, or it's just too much suddenly, it's just giving yourself permission to be kind to yourself. I think it's the simple things, Anne. I think sometimes when you're in that, and some people might think, well, it's easier said than done, but I think it's starting little by little, isn't it? And it's just trying to switch yourself out of that, that depth of a place. So, and speaking to friends.
Yeah, I think you're right. Speaking is important, because often, even just to share a worry or concern can lighten the load for a lot of people. And the other thing that I've found that helps me is to keep to some sort of routine. So for me, I'm still getting up early in the morning because routine works well for me, and I'm still keeping myself really, really busy. So I feel like I'm still having I'm self-employed. Most of my clients come to my studio, so therefore I'm not seeing many clients, but when you're self-employed, you can always find something to do. But I think anybody can get into something, maybe something creative. So, you can write your own story or whatever. So there's plenty of things for people to get into. And I think if you can fill your day, because I think sometimes if you're just left to sit and stew, that can make you feel worse, and it can make you feel very lethargic, and all of that can then make you feel down. Whereas I'm like, most days I'm like, right, 5:30 is the time I normally get up, so I'm getting up at 5:30 and doing my cycle training, and by the time I've done that and I've sorted the cats out and I've showered and done all the usual things, it's like, okay, I'm ready to start my working day, even though my working day might have changed. It might not be what it was. So I think, like I say, for me, routine, I go to bed the same time, so I don't change that side of things. And I'm getting out there, getting the fresh air, and even if I'm doing my indoor training on my bike, I'm still getting outside for a walk later in the day. So like you say, walking, it sounds like something really simple, but actually, as you've pointed out, it's the simple things. If you think about, we're very simple creatures really, and it's what nourishes us as human beings. Let's strip away all the extras And it's like, okay, what do human beings need? Ideally, we need social contact of some sort. And because for some people, they might be at home alone. Therefore, how else can you get that? Well, we're lucky. We're in an age where we have phones and social media and so forth. So we can get some sort of social contact now. And I don't know about your situation, but I think over here we can do social distancing walks and things like that. So there's ways to achieve that as well. So I think it is really keeping moving in various ways, keeping things moving along, not getting too absorbed into what might happen because we don't know, and not getting, sorry, I feel like I'm waffling now, but not getting too absorbed into the negatives of what's going on as well, because a lot of people like to sort of dramatize the situation that we're in, and that can pull you down. So be aware of what pulls you down as well.
Exactly. It's like, you know, we have little antennae, don't we? Reading, you know, our environment, you know, picking up on everybody's energy, you know, what people say, how they react or respond to, you know, the media or what's going on or the situation. But then that's their story. It's not our own. And I think you're right. I think it's so important just to really come back to you and just check in with yourself and think, actually, you know, right, why am I suddenly feeling so down or so fed up with this situation? Is this really how I would normally react? Or and yeah, start to realize that you do have a choice. Everybody has a choice to make the change. And I think, you know, yeah, for those who are isolated or locked down, living alone, it is very different. If you're not, you know, used to being on your own, you know, for some people, as you say, we're social beings, not having that is so isolating and scary. So that's why going for a walk, you know, you're going to pass people all the time. You know, I live alone with my dog, and you just walk through the village, and you know, even though you don't know the people, you see another person and you can say hello or whatever. And even that, you know, so by the time you've done your walk, and it's the same in the towns, cities, you know, you're going to see people. So it's like, oh, there is human life, you know. So then when you come back to your environment when you're alone, you feel different. You think, oh, you know, I've had an experience.
Raised your energy.
Exactly, and there's so many things that people can get involved in, and I know people have. You know, so much online, isn't there? And then if you're not an online person, you know, puzzles or books, as you say, drawing, creative, and maybe I would say see it as this time to be able to do all that, because otherwise life's going to get busy again, and it's, you know, it's all those things that, you know, creative projects within the house. I mean, I'm very social, but I also love my own company. I'm very, you know, absolutely very happy on my own. So it's almost making your home and being on your own just a lovely, it's like your little temple. It's just, you know, just be really happy in it. And cooking is brilliant. I mean, I love cooking, and I found, especially in the first lockdown, that was so cathartic. I just loved it. I thought, wow, I've got all this time to do all this amazing cooking, and then I'd post it. So then you're sharing it with other people, and they think, oh, that's a great recipe, you know, and it's like a ripple on the pond, isn't it? So yeah,
It all raises your energy, raises your vibration.
Exactly.
What would you say to mothers who might be struggling with homeschooling at the moment?
And yeah, I have many conversations with mothers who are exactly that. And I would say just to have a laugh, have a smile about it. If suddenly it goes all pear-shaped, you know, you've got your youngster, little one who doesn't want to go online today, you've got your elder one who's struggling, then just sort of, it's just let it be almost. It's just, you know, it's not the end of the world. But I think what happens is it's suddenly that peer pressure of, oh my goodness, mine aren't doing it, but then all their peers are doing it and they're going to fall behind. And I think, again, you hear on the radio or TV, in the news, studies, statistics of, oh gosh, how, already I heard something, of how, how this is going to affect the children at the moment, what years on, when they're out in the world and they're going to suddenly not be earning their calculated amount of money that they wouldn't be earning. And how on earth do you know that? It's just ridiculous. And I think, again, it's filter your environment, come back to what's right for you and your children and your family. And I would say it's not all about academia and learning, it's life experiences, do some painting with the children, do some, if they get little ones, and it was like maths that day, do some other fun ways to do some counting or, subtraction with, I don't know, all their favorite teddies or something, or, food, fruit, I mean, there's so many things. It's getting creative, isn't it? It's find other ways, if you still wanted to do a bit of learning, find other ways. But I think, again, it's that being kind, isn't it? It's not stressing about it, because in the big picture, it doesn't matter. From my own experience, again, when Benji and I were in hospital, for a long time, he obviously, schooling was the last thing on his mind. He just, mentally and emotionally, psychologically, was not able to even focus on anything. But because we were there a long time, then, they did sort of have teachers that went round, or you could go to, a sort of set up classroom. So he slowly did that, but it was tiny bits. But and the school sent work and they said, if you want to do it, if you don't. And I took that view. If he didn't, doesn't matter. What was so much more important was getting him to be in a much better, stable, emotional and mental state, and just to bring some joy back into his life. So again, I think that's totally relatable to where in a different situation to now. It doesn't matter. What's more important is that you are all, the kids are happy and they're not stressed, because if they're stressed, they're not going to be able to do the work. So Benji missed out on so many months of learning, and then of course he didn't go back to school for probably at least 6 months, and then he just started going back the odd hour just to really socially see his friends, and we've just built it up, maybe another hour. So I would say that whole year was just a bit of a blur for him. And yet then when he started in the new school year, he was fine. He didn't feel left behind. So that's what I've learned from my experience, that there's no point worrying about it. There's bigger things to worry about, and just make sure the kids are happy. Just see that they can do the best they can, and also the mothers, because the mothers, the toll on them is huge. It's because then you feel like, oh, I'm not being a good mother, I'm not being a good parent, I should be able to make them focus more on it, and it's huge, especially if the parents are also working and you're all in the same house, and it's
because you're a mother, not a teacher. You've got to remember that your role in life is a mother, not a teacher. And the other thing that comes to my mind is, I often see teenagers in my work who are anxious or stressed or depressed, or maybe even self-harming, those sorts of issues. And you can be the most intelligent, you can have all the qualifications that you'll ever need in life, but if mentally and emotionally you're not in a good place, none of that matters. So the most important thing is, as you say, to be happy, to be mentally and emotionally in a much better place, in a good place. and then you will thrive in life.
Totally.
The other thing I encourage people to do is to follow their passions. Ideally, you know, I think sometimes we're led to believe there's a certain route in life and that you've got to get your qualifications, but actually I feel that there's brilliance in everybody, and the thing to do is to encourage them in their passions, and then they'll be successful.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think passion is everything. You know, I'm passionate about, you know, the work I do with mothers. I'm passionate about my children. I'm passionate about being a mother, passionate about animals, passionate about skiing. You know, it's like, and the list goes on. It's passion, as you say, is just the most amazing energy, because it just fills you up, doesn't it? It's so encouraging. It's you know, gives you that strength and courage, and because you're doing what you love. So yeah, totally find what they're passionate about.
I think it gets you up in the morning.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like even when I worked in finance, and it, you know, it was fine, but it wasn't a passion. And I used to say the thing that got me up in the morning was actually my cycling. That was
yes,
the thing I got up for, you know.
yeah.
And now my work is my passion, so that's, you know, that works. But if we go back to mothers, obviously, you know, when someone becomes a mother, their focus then is on their children and giving them the best life. And I've noticed through mothers that I've seen in my work is they come right down the end of the pecking order. So how can they still have their passion in life? Is there any sort of advice you would give them for that?
Well, that's something I always say to my clients. I always say, you've got to put yourself on top of the pile. You've got to be top dog. And they just sort of look at me sometimes a bit quizzically, thinking, really? You know, I've got my children, and I've got my husband or partner, and maybe parents living with whatever, and animals. You know, got to put them all first, because then that makes a happy household. But you know, if you deprive yourself of honoring, you know, who you are and your self-worth and your value, and you know what makes you happy, then you're going to have absolutely no energy left in the tank to be there for everybody else. It's like, as we say in the EFT training, isn't it? You know, put your own oxygen mask on first, you know, and they say on planes, before you help, you know, children or elderly. And it's so true. And that's why I was passionate about, and I mentioned at the beginning of our chat, about really making myself okay when I went through my traumas, because if I could really support and clear what I had gone through, and get myself back to that, you know, equilibrium again, and sort of that, you know, a happy place, then I've got the energy, I've got yeah, the sort of can create the right environment for the children, and that's exactly, yeah, you should just make you know, give as much time to yourself as you would the children.
Is there
So
a way
that's
people can
important.
do that on a practical level? Because I can imagine sort of mothers turning around saying to you, well, how can I do that? Because I've got to run them around to after school activities when this is a normal life, not lockdown. You know, I've got to get the food ready. You know, I've got all these chores to do. So is there any sort of practical advice that you could give them?
I mean, I would say, obviously, if they've come to me, if they're in overwhelm, or got, you know, different issues going on, then obviously working through what's sabotaging, you know, what's saying, oh, I've got no time for me, or you know, having to do all the school runs, or taking them to this club or that club, or then I've got to come and, yeah, cook the evening meal, and then I've got to do the ironing and for the next day. So if you're coming at it with that negative vibe, that negative, oh, it's all such a chore, then it's going to be hard. It's going to be, bring you down. So I think that's why working through on an energetic level as well can change that belief. Yeah, you still might be exhausted and everything, think, oh, well, I would much prefer to be sitting down watching something, or I don't know, having a lovely soak in the bath, peace and quiet. But then that again is so important to make time for all those. But it's your attitude, I think, is so key, because then you are going to have all these stuff as a mother going on, but it's again how we come to the table, with our perspective about it. But then I would say, yeah, so you've got to have boundaries. You've got to have right, mom is going to go off and have a soak in the bath, and that is her time. Or she's going to go off for a walk by herself, maybe. Obviously, if you've got partner, husband, that you can leave the kids with. And even, I think, even if, like I was a single mum, even if you haven't got somebody there, you've just got to be very honest and open with the kids, I would say, and so that they realise that you do need your own space and your own time, even if it's just for 10 minutes. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have a cup of tea, might read, a bit of a book or magazine or whatever it is. So they just know. So boundaries, I would say, is otherwise, if you have no time and space at all, then yeah, you're going to be completely run ragged. And I've worked with so many mums that you just have to implement its structure, its routine, and children, do like, routine, and you can make it, something fun that they can do while you're doing something else, so they sort of see it as, oh, this is a bit of a treat for me. I've just got a bit of time out doing this. And I think you just have to also go with what works for each individual. Everybody's different, but I would say you've got to make time for yourself, definitely. And I think when we can go out and about again, is going out to see friends and getting a babysitter, or getting, a friend to look after them. Because I know, obviously babysitting comes at a cost. Not everybody can do that. And if family aren't around, but I just say there's thinking out of the box. There's always ways around it. Because I say my mother's journey, pretty well, all my mother's journey life, I've been on my own. So, and I've been working as well, when they got older. So you just have to, and it is doable.
So what I've noticed with a lot of the mothers that I see in my work is they do still seem, even though, we're meant to live in a much more modern world and things are meant to be a lot more equal. If I just take what I witness from my clients who are mothers, is a lot of them are working now full-time, or sometimes part-time, but still quite a lot of hours. And they're still doing pretty much everything else. And sometimes, I have a conversation with them about that fact that actually, this is no wonder you're stressed, because you're just taking on too much. Is that a conversation that you might have with your mothers, where there's like a reality check here?
Absolutely. And that's when, again, it's boundaries, isn't it? And it's then you work on relationship issues that might be going on with, the partner, with the husband. And then it also goes back to perhaps their childhood. What was the environment that they were brought up in? How was their mother and father role? Was the mother having to do everything? So they could then take it on that this is what a mother does, it's normal. Obviously everybody will react differently to their environment and make a different belief. So somebody having exact same situation might think, well, I'm absolutely going to do the complete opposite and make sure it's an equal relationship. So but I would say it's something to look at, so definitely if mothers come to me saying, oh, I've just got no time, and I just can't make any time because I'm having to do everything. As I do say there are still ways around it. And I think that's when it's having the conversation that, you know, between your therapist, that you can even, you know, a little sort of penny will drop or light bulb moment and think, gosh, yeah, I could do that actually, that is feasible. But it's also to sort of, it comes back to the value of yourself, and especially if the husband, the partner is, you know, working, but then mother is also working and doing everything else, then it's out of balance, isn't it? So it's being able to then, you know, help with the imbalance of the relationship, and then be able to encourage and empower your client to sort of have that conversation with the husband, sort of say, you know, I'm really struggling, you know, how can we change this? How can we, you know, sort of halve up the chores or the duties, you know. And obviously, you know, it can go on and on because different sort of avenues, because, you know, so obviously some relationships, that's not, you know, the husband's not going to take too kindly to that, you know, it's just like, well, no, you know. So again, but that's when obviously the work we do, then you just sort of support and explore further to find, you know, ways to help.
So just thinking about your mother's journey, you know, in a way, it's still ongoing, isn't it? You know, your children are adults now, but you're still a mother, and you're still on that journey. With your clients, do you sort of see people for some people anyway, for like long periods of time through their journey, or is it that they come to you when they sort of have a particular issue? I mean, you're probably going to tell me it's a combination, but I'm curious to know if you have any clients that you might have seen for maybe years, and they just find it useful to keep, you know, seeing you on a regular basis so that they're dealing with things as they arise.
Absolutely, you're quite right. It is all a combination. So I'll have some mothers that have a specific issue that's happened, and, you know, they come to me for, you know, maybe 6 sessions, and then, you know, maybe I don't see them again. Then I can see some who, you know, come and see me for maybe 3 months or, you know, 6 months. And then I do have some longer term clients. That got one client that probably started seeing in 2016, and then, you know, comes sort of quite regularly, and then maybe have some time out and come back again. It all depends on what, you know, is going on in their life, or what has been going on in their lives. And the clients that come to me for, you know, over many years, there's lots of stuff back to childhood and generational, ancestral stuff going on, which keeps, you know, affecting obviously in their present. And then often I've then started working with the whole family as well, and you know, the grandparents, and which has been absolutely fascinating. And I love that work. I think it's so amazing. So I've been very honoured to work with yeah, some amazing clients in that way. And yeah, so I say a lot of clients, you know, come for a while and then come back. You know, it's just because the mother's journey is ongoing. So but I think once they have the tools, and so many of them come and then realize the transformation, that then they're keen to train in it, whether it's just for themselves or whether it's then to, you know, often start their own business, which is lovely.
You also sound quite versatile in the way that you work, and I think that's a bit of a trait, I think, of people who are in the holistic business, really, isn't it? Is that most of us tend to have a range of techniques that we might use and dip into, but maybe have our favorites. And then also, sort of, because you're dealing with so many different issues, aren't you, as well? So you have to be quite sort of on the ball, and just looking for sometimes those little nuggets, isn't it, that someone might come up with, your client might just make a passing comment, and then if you'd like me, sort of, it's a bit of a aha, you sort of latch onto that and you realize that might be key to what's going on. So is that the way that you work, quite versatile? And
yeah, I'm very intuitive. So yeah, because I think just sort of really sort of feeling the situation but listening is so key, because I work with mothers from one end of the spectrum to the other, mothers who aren't a mother yet but they would love to be. So I sort of work with them on their fertility journey and do a lot of birth work, traumatic births that they might have, then need to come and sort of clear that and have support around that. And then new mothers, and again often find themselves an absolute doing a perfect job, but doubting themselves all the time, and judging themselves. So yeah, judgment, is obviously one thing we say. Just don't judge yourself, don't judge others, and so then that can take us back to childhood. It's just asking the question. So what was your mothering experience? How what was your relationship with your mother, and what happened? And it seems such a simple thing, but sometimes people just don't even sort of relate that to what might be going on for them. So and of course, maybe grandmothers were around, when they were young, and how was the grandmother maybe talking to their mother about how they were being a mother. It's all these beliefs that we absorb throughout our life that then show up, and then suddenly we're, say, doing a great job being a new mum, but there's this little voice in our head saying that we're not good enough, we don't know what we're doing, and then that can lead to postnatal depression and all sorts of issues, and then working through the mother's journey of anything that might come up along the way for the children. Again, bullying, eating disorders, again, serious illnesses, unexpected illnesses, disability, behavioural issues. I've worked with a lot of mothers who've got autistic children. So again, I love working, it's like the full circle of working with the mothers to get them in a good place, but then helping the children as well, and helping the two of them together. And that's a beautiful sort of space, I think. And then, yeah, teenagers, as you mentioned. And then, yeah, my three children are adults, but I'm always sort of with the conversations, I think, it's always, like having a coaching conversation, and sharing wisdom or tips and tools. And so they have the coloured bottles and all sorts of tools in their flats, and the tapping and stuff. Because it's just, they're always going to be my children, whatever age. So yeah, we're always sort of always there to sort of help and support. And I think also, stepmothers and then grandmothers. I have quite a few clients who are grandmothers, because I think you can get to a point where you feel right now is sort of my time to enjoy the grandchildren, but maybe go off and do a bit of traveling, or have some time for their hobbies or whatever, and suddenly maybe their children have to go back to work, so suddenly they're brought in as the carers. The grandparents become the parents, and I've seen that a lot, and that's very challenging. And also working with grandmothers who find themselves coming to live with their son or daughter in the family, whether it's because of health or whatever, and then suddenly they're still the mother of their child, but it's the dynamics that they can then struggle with. So it's fascinating. There's so many layers of the mother's journey, it's fascinating. It's never nothing is ever the same, which same for any client, but yeah, it's so rewarding though, and because I sort of resonate with so many different things.
Yeah, but I think what would be nice at some point is to speak to you again about maybe sort of some of these more specific issues. I mean, bullying is something that I really love to talk about because it's something that I feel quite passionate about, and has been quite a strong challenge within my family. So I think that would be good. And I see clients who have had that as a massive effect on their life. I just think it's still a huge topic that, on a sort of practical scale, in terms of organisations, really hasn't always been properly addressed. You know, schools and organisations and clubs, even with anti-bullying policies. Yeah. So I think maybe we could probably talk about that as a separate subject at some point, and also maybe some of the other areas. Just before we sort of close off, you've mentioned EFT a few times, and I'm aware that maybe not every, we always think, oh, everyone must know EFT, but it's not necessarily that. How would you describe EFT to somebody who has never even heard of it?
Well, it's called emotional freedom technique. And in very basic terms, it's a simple technique by tapping on different parts of the hand and the body, namely the face, just to bring down the intensity. If you were suddenly feeling really panicky or really angry or really sad, and it was just so overwhelming, it's a tool that you could, again, have once you know how to do it yourself. You'd just literally be tapping on these different points, which are the meridians. And I think most people have heard of acupuncture and understand a little bit how that works, or they know that, the needles go in certain different points of the body. And again, it's all about the energy. So it's removing any blocks, the chi. So EFT is like a cousin of acupuncture, we say, because instead of having to put the needles in, we just tap. So it's just a simple tapping on the side of the hand to begin with, even though I'm feeling so overwhelmed, even though it's just been a nightmare day because the kids haven't wanted to do any homeschooling. Oh God, the internet went down, so we couldn't log on, and I feel they're not going to be able to finish their projects. And I just feel so overwhelmed, so just exhausted, can't bear it, I've had enough of it. All those things somebody could be feeling, but if they're feeling them while you're tapping on this point, so acknowledging how you're feeling is so key. Even when you're having a conversation with somebody, you're getting it out there, aren't you? You're expressing it. So it's not keeping it all within. So acknowledging that you're feeling this overwhelm, etc., and then accepting that you're where you are in that moment. But it's by tapping on all these meridians that just shift the intensity of it and the emotional charge. And then we would just do a few points, and then just tapping on the top of the head, we just praise it, pick sort of the odd word, this overwhelm. Just so exhausted. Kid's going to get behind. So worried that if they get behind. So it's all these points, top of the head, either side of the eyebrow, under the eye, under the nose, on the chin, and the collarbone point, and under the arm, the wrists, and then just on the fingers. And you can go on, there's so many sites online, YouTube, as we said earlier, these brilliant little videos to show you and tap along with, and obviously lovely therapists that do it. And but what it does, it just, and even if you're so, the intensity is off the scale with however you're feeling, and you just think, oh, I don't want to say anything, just know how you're feeling. So even by just tapping, you just find that you just start to calm, and it just will take the intensity down a little bit. And obviously then the more rounds you can do, as we call it, you can explore further, what is as you said, the nugget, what is the real crux of this, that's really pushing your buttons, Is it because you're just so exhausted? Is it because the fear of the kids getting behind? What is it? And obviously, we could go talk at length and more about EFT, but trying to do a tiny little bit for you. It's just in that moment, you can just feel the body, the energy shifting and relaxing. So if you were feeling that overwhelm on about a 10, you could just in a quick round, you could bring it down,
Yeah.
maybe an 8 or 6. And you can bring colour in, as I say, we're both colour therapists. It's got a few of these little, imagine a colour, what colour is this overwhelm, this anger? So there's lots and lots of tools.
There's so many ways, aren't there, to clear through the drudge, through the emotions, through the heaviness. There are just so many ways, and I think it's about what works for that person very much. And tapping's such a great and an easy one once you get into it. I always get people just learn the points first, once you know the points and you can do them without even thinking about it, then that's easy. Then you can focus on really what you're feeling. And when we talk about intensity, we often will score it 0's not a problem, it's fine, it's gone, there's no issue, 10 being I'm at the height. So just try and bring that intensity down. And a simple one that I sometimes say to people is, if you like, a bit similar to what you said about if you're not sure what to say or you're just so intense, sometimes also just saying let it go, let it go, let it go, and that can really help as well.
Exactly. And even I think sometimes putting the positives, even though I'm feeling so overwhelmed and so exhausted, I'm just gonna just choose to try and feel a little less overwhelmed, or choose to try and feel a little bit calmer, or maybe give permission to myself to, as you say, to let it go. Again, it comes back to being kind. Kindness is one of my biggest things, I think, and as well as compassion, it's being kind to yourself, and again, by saying, those words with tapping as well, it's just, amazing, the difference, isn't it?
Actually, it's interesting you say that about being kind to yourself, because that's something that I notice a lot, and something I talk to a lot of my clients about, especially female clients, probably more so, funnily enough, is they can be so hard on themselves. Guys can be as well, but I noticed that with female, they set such high standards for themselves and they don't give themselves any leeway, and then all they do is focus on what they see as the negatives.
Absolutely.
And so you're right that being more forgiving, much kinder, letting things go, just remember you're a human being, you're not a robot. Especially at these times, and like we say, even though we talk about clearing everything that's negative and creating much more positive beliefs and creating much better energy, we are humans, we have emotions, and that's okay.
Exactly.
It is about just going, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this, and yes, I had that bad thought about that person, but so what?
Exactly.
Don't try perfection.
Exactly, and it's all part of our human experience, isn't it? Gosh, if everything was just all rosy all the time, we wouldn't be learning and growing, and that's what I think what it's all about. When something happens, I try sort of, clients to see, what is it coming to teach me? What is this all about? What's the bigger picture? Rather than just seeing it, in this sort of 3D as it is, what's the higher purpose, what's the soul purpose? And that's, again, very much how I work, is spiritually, sort of with the soul's view.
Yeah, and so you're sort of looking right on up that level, really. And there's often patterns, aren't there? Patterns is key, isn't it? Why does this keep happening to me? What am I here to learn? And address it from that sort of angle. What am I here to experience?
Absolutely. And I think once the client can then, once we unravel and find, perhaps what their life purpose is, what they've come here to experience and learn, then life becomes so different. And then you can find that, all these patterns that keep happening, they don't, we will keep being shown, our life purpose until we fully face it, really close out. And with a lot of clients, especially because I work, specialist in loss and grief, which are, comes up hugely, obviously, in a mother's journey. And it's being able to track back, as we said, through the generations and the ancestral, that then it makes sense, because obviously it's, grief and loss, it's really, really challenging and really traumatic. And I have one client who had so much grief and loss, going down her timeline, the whole family, for generations. And even though she knew about it, she couldn't really sort of transfer it and relate it to why now in my life, sort of at the moment, why is all this still happening, why? And I think once we sort of put the puzzle together, it really helped, because she could really see, wow, I see now. It's like life was sort of, repeating itself again and again and again from her, her grandmother, great grandmother, and all the same traumatic challenges that were happening. So, it's like, turning the light on, isn't it? Which I think I love exploring from lots of different angles, and I think that just really helps clients. I think it really does. It gives its options, isn't it? It's choices. It's not just having to go down one way. And I guess, as we both share, many different tools, and I think that is brilliant, bringing all the different tools in to help and explore. I think also having these conversations and not just looking where we are now, but let's look at your childhood. Let's look at, your mums. Let's look at your grandmothers and great grandmothers and all the different times and generations and what was going on, obviously, back in those days. Huge, traumas that have had such a significant part to play on what was playing out in, a client's life. So, it's fascinating.
I mean, one thing that I've found is that, my work is predominantly to do with the subconscious mind. Most people relate what I do with the hypnotherapy. Normally when a client comes to me, it's for that reason. Occasionally it's for EFT, but obviously I use whatever tools are relevant, but that's the reason they come to me. And I tend to think in terms largely of the subconscious mind. But interestingly, there's also something about, and I find the colours do this really well for me, is when you then bring up an issue to your consciousness, there's an opportunity then also to release it. It's interesting that you can change your perception and thoughts and feelings, but in such different ways.
Exactly. And isn't that lovely to be able to do that? I think that's, because, I also obviously work in the subconscious with matrix re-imprinting and sort of the light matrix, going sort of past lives, and but I think bringing it to your conscious awareness of what you sort of find out in the subconscious is huge. Absolutely. I think you obviously meet each client where they are and how they are, and that's what I love, having so many different tools, techniques and ways of working with people, because it's not a one size fits all. We're all different. We had a different life experience with different souls. And that's what's so lovely. It's refreshing, because it's just like a blank canvas each time somebody walks in, and you just meet them exactly where they are. And that's really honouring who they are.
Perfect metaphor, blank canvas. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you for that. Is there maybe a final little positive or a piece of advice that you would like to give anybody who might be listening in?
I would say whatever comes your way, thrown your way, even on your mother's journey, just have that lovely faith and trust that you will be okay, and that you can move through this. Because, you know, there were times in my mother's journey where I thought, wow, how can life ever be the same? How can I be happy? And how can my children be happy? And yet we are, you know. And so I would say, yeah, just keep that faith and trust and that hope, and yeah, and just be amazed at what is possible.
I think that's it. I think that's the thing that this type of work opens us up to, is we do believe that change is very much possible, and we don't know what is at the end of that possibility. It could be even more amazing than even you or I could imagine at that beginning point. So I'm like you, I keep a very open mind.
Because I think, you know, with all the adversity that, you know, I've been on my mother's journey and my children have, who we have become because of it is just amazing.
We're definitely an inspiration. If people would like to find out more about what you do, is there a website or some way of sort of keeping a watchful eye on your plans and what you do?
Absolutely. My website is www.lisabarry.me. I'm working on a new one, which is going to be a mother's journey. And I'm on Facebook, and it's all a mother's journey on Facebook, and on Instagram as mother's journey. Instagram is probably where I do a lot of posting at the moment. I'm currently doing some Instagram live
Oh, brilliant.
interviews every Tuesday at 7:30 with lots of different mothers who are friends and colleagues, and they're all become different sort of specialists in their field. And so yeah, they're great fun. And again, I'm just trying to reach as many mothers as possible. So yeah, that's how they can reach me.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your time, and I'd like to think maybe we will meet up again at some point.
Definitely. I think, yeah, lots more to chat and explore. Yeah, lots of crossovers would be fantastic. Yeah, just to support more mothers, and on these, as you say, there's so many different areas that we go deeper in with our knowledge and experience. Would be brilliant. And as you said, you touched on the bullying, because again, you know, I've worked with sort of, you know, say big kids who are still, you know, having that bullying in the workplace. You know, it's huge, and it's so important, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe next time.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. Lovely to
Pleasure.
see you.
Lovely to see you. Thank you.